Hey everyone, welcome back to the Doberman Dialogues. I'm Brittany, your Doberman-obsessed hostess and longtime lover of this bold, beautiful breed. And of course, joining me is my awesome friend and co-host, Liam.
That's me, and today's episode is one for the books. We're taking aim at some of the most stubborn, outdated, and straight-up weird myths about Dobermans.
You know, you've heard them. The dramatic, they turn on their owners myth. The wild, their brains grow too big for their skull myth. These crazy rumors refuse to die.
Yeah, they get passed around like urban legends at a campfire. But we're here to hold up the flashlight of science, facts, and lived experience. Because these myths aren't just annoying, they affect how people treat this breed. From adoption to legislation to just walking down the street.
Exactly. So let's roll up our sleeves and see what's up with these myths.
So, myth number 1, Dobermans turn on their owners.
Oh boy, that's the big one. It's the myth you'll hear from your cousin's neighbor's uncle. I heard Dobermans are loyal until they just snap and attack their owner.
This one is not just false, it's just plain dangerous. It paints Dobermans as ticking time bombs, and yet we still hear it whispered on dog forums, in parks, even from some vets who should know better. The truth? There is no scientific evidence that Dobermans are more likely to attack their owners than any other breed.
Besides, the original Dobermans bred by Louis Doberman were meant to be a loyal, protective shadow, and not traitors.
That's right, Brittany. Also, the AVSAB, American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior, along with other professional groups, emphasize that behavior is shaped by training, socialization, and environment, not breed alone. So if a Doberman, quote-unquote, turns on their owner, it's usually because of one of those 3 reasons.
It could also be or include some type of abuse or trauma, especially when you see how some of these irresponsible backyard breeders treat their dogs, which also causes issues. Not to mention the inbreeding, which is just wrong in itself.
That's for sure. Any dog that's mistreated, under-socialized, or kept in fear can and will bite. It's not a Doberman thing. It's a dog thing. I think the real fear behind this myth is, can a powerful dog be trusted? And the answer is, with the right upbringing and environment, absolutely.
Our sponsors, Dobie Foster Friends, have had Dobies for decades and have been fostering, and they have never come across a Dobie that seems dangerous. Scared? Yes. Weary of strangers? Yes. But dangerous? Nope, not in the least.
So let's end this section by letting everyone know, the idea that Dobermans turn on their owners is the biggest myth regarding any dog. It wrongly casts these intelligent, loyal dogs as unstable and unpredictable. And as we said earlier, there's no science behind it, it's all just fear. And yet, this myth still shows up in insurance policies and casual conversations. That stigma hurts dogs, and the families who love them. Myth number 2. And buckle up, because this one is truly off the rails. Their brains grow too big for their skulls. I don't know about you, Brittany, but this has got to be one of the most bizarre myths I've ever heard about with any breed. This blows my mind. No pun intended. The rumor is that a Doberman's brain literally keeps growing past puppyhood until it presses up against the inside of their skull, causing pain, madness, and eventually, they snap and turn on their owners.
What are we even talking about here? So Doberman pinchers' brains keep growing until they literally burst through their skulls? It's like, I don't know, a science fiction horror movie. This is a pure science fiction, and it's not even good science fiction at that.
And many people actually believe this. That's absolutely wild.
It certainly is, Liam. And you know what this reminds me of? Those medieval beliefs about werewolves and full moons affecting behavior. People love a good biological horror story. You might as well say they grow horns at midnight, because in all actuality, there's no veterinary textbook, no animal behavioral course, no neurological study that says this is a thing.
That's right. This myth is completely made up. You can ask any board-certified veterinary neurologist. There is no such condition in dogs. Not in Dobermans, not in golden retrievers, not in any breed. A healthy dog's brain does not outgrow its skull. This simply does not happen in normal canine development.
If that actually happened, it would be a catastrophic medical emergency, not something that causes sneaky aggression. The dog wouldn't be fine one moment and then just turn on someone the next moment. The dog, or any animal, would be in excruciating pain, likely seizing, probably go blind, or even immediate death.
Exactly. Dobermans are consistently ranked among the most intelligent dog breeds. According to canine psychologist Stanley Coren, they place in the top 5 for working and obedience intelligence, which has nothing to do with their brains growing too big.
Now, there are real neurological disorders that affect dogs and people, but they're completely different. Take hydrocephalus, for example. That's a fluid buildup in the brain that can cause pressure and damage. But it's seen mostly in toy breeds like Chihuahuas or Yorkies. And it has nothing to do with brain tissue growing too big for a skull, and nothing to do with aggression either. Dogs with hydrocephalus are more likely to be slow to learn or show motor issues, not go on some horror movie rampage.
And Dobermans aren't even a breed that's prone to it. Some people also mention Chiari-like malformations, which affect breeds like Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. Again, not Dobermans. So, if we're being generous, maybe someone once saw a dog with a real neurological issue and misunderstood it. But more likely,
It's a story someone made up to explain behavior they didn't understand, or didn't want to take responsibility for.
that would be my assessment too. Maybe this myth connects due to their physical appearance. They're sleek, powerful-looking dogs with these beautifully shaped heads. Despite this persistent myth, the Doberman skull is perfectly proportioned for its brain size, just like any healthy, well-bred dog. You know what else? It's interesting how we tend to create these elaborate explanations for things we don't understand or fear.
And here's something else to think about. Studies have shown that negative stereotypes about certain dog breeds can significantly lower their adoption rates, sometimes by more than 20%. For example, a study published in DobieS1, known as the Public Library of Science, found that dogs labeled as pit bulls waited 3 times longer for adoption compared to similar dogs without breed labels. Other research, including from the University of Arizona, shows that removing breed labels from shelter profiles can dramatically improve adoption rates. So, these myths have real, measurable consequences.
Well, that's heartbreaking, especially considering, and we mentioned earlier, that Dobermans consistently score high on temperament tests. Remember? The American Temperament Test Society gives them a pass rate of 84%.
Some experts think this myth started sometime in the 1970s or early 80s. Dobermans were super popular, especially for protection and security work. But with popularity came overbreeding, often by those irresponsible people that were more interested in profit or intimidation than in health or temperament.
So you had these Dobies that were poorly bred, not socialized, and trained using punishment or even abuse. If they started showing signs of stress, fear, or reactivity, the blame went to a brain disorder instead of blaming the environment or the humans.
Where the blame really should have been laid.
That's right. Someone invented a neat little excuse. Oh, their brain just grows too fast and makes them snap.
Because blaming biology is easier than admitting we failed the dog.
Exactly what I was going to say. And I don't think we can say this enough. Dobermans are highly intelligent. That's not a threat. It's a gift. But it means they need stimulation. They need training, play, jobs. If a Doberman is acting out, it's not brain pressure. It's probably boredom, anxiety, or under-exercised energy.
Just imagine having a high IQ dog cooped up in a house all day with no structure, no walks, no playtime, and then getting mad when it chews your shoes. It's like putting a valedictorian in detention and wondering why they get moody.
Mental stimulation is a must. Smart dogs need to work, or they'll find jobs for themselves.
I've heard of Dobermans opening doors, even sorting laundry. They're brilliant, not broken. The real so-called danger, if there is one, is underestimating them, not fearing some made-up condition. So, let's just say it loud for the people in the back. No, Dobermans' brains do not outgrow their skulls. That is not a thing. That has never been a thing. It's just a scary story with no science behind it. Veterinary science has thoroughly debunked the myth that a dog's brain can outgrow its skull. Again, there's no evidence of abnormal brain growth in any breed, including Dobermans.
You know, there are a lot of professional dog trainers with years of experience working with Dobermans that say it's a constant battle against misinformation. Their initial consultations often involve answering questions about and debunking common myths, such as exaggerated claims about aggression or outdated ideas like the brain outgrowing the skull myth. These misconceptions can create unnecessary fear and misunderstanding about the breed.
So, if someone tells you Dobermans go crazy because their brains outgrow their skulls, you have our permission to roll your eyes. And maybe gently hand them this podcast episode too.
That's a good idea, Britt. I would like to back up a little and say that while we were tearing apart that myth, Doberman's brains outgrowing their skulls, we mentioned something called Chiari-like malformation, or CM as it's called in the veterinarian world. I think it might be worth digging into this and explain what it actually is.
Good idea. Because the way these myths start with just a tiny kernel of truth before morphing into something unrecognizable. When these myths spread, they end up twisting into something that it is not, and CM is a good example of that.
Okay, so this is what CM actually is. We're talking about a serious neurological condition where the skull, specifically the back portion, is either malformed or too small.
So it's almost like trying to fit a slightly too large object into a container that's just a bit too small. The brain gets cramped in the back of the head, putting pressure on the cerebellum or brainstem.
The skull isn't necessarily too small. Rather, it could be deformed to the point that it can't accommodate the brain properly when it grows.
Which means it can mess with how cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, flows around the brain and spinal cord. The cerebrospinal fluid normally acts like this protective cushion around the brain and spinal cord. But when you've got CM, that flow gets disrupted, and it can lead to something called syringomyelia.
That's right, Brittany. Syringomyelia is a disorder where fluid-filled cavities called syrinxes form within the spinal cord. These cavities expand over time, damaging the spinal cord and leading to pain, neurological issues, and mobility problems.
The symptoms are nothing like what people claim happens with aggressive behavior. Instead, we see very specific signs, like neck pain, problems with balance and coordination. They're in pain, and many owners will notice their dog suddenly crying out for no reason.
So unlike the myth suggests, the dog won't get suddenly aggressive. It's heartbreaking and totally misunderstood when taken out of context.
And a really distinct symptom we didn't mention is phantom scratching, or air scratching.
Yes, this symptom is a bit fascinating. The dogs will literally paw at the air near their shoulders, almost like they're trying to scratch an itch they can't reach. It may be odd to watch, but it's clinically significant.
It certainly is. Studies have shown that up to 67% of dogs with Chiari-like malformation and syringomyelia, CM, and SM exhibit this specific behavior, especially those with larger syrinxes.
And according to a 2019 study published in Acta Veterinaria Scandinavica, phantom scratching is considered one of the most reliable behavioral indicators of a large and clinically relevant syrinx in affected dogs.
Here's where the science gets really clear. CM is almost exclusively found in toy and small breeds, with the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel being particularly susceptible.
So true. And studies show that up to 95% of the breed may be affected. We also see it in Chihuahuas, Brussels Griffons, and other small breeds with those characteristic dome-shaped heads.
So when people try to connect this to Dobermans, well, that's where the myth completely falls apart.
That's right. Dobermans have an entirely different skull structure. It's longer, more angular, and built on completely different architectural principles. Recent veterinary studies have found zero correlation between CM and bigger dogs, such as the Doberman breed.
The diagnostic process is pretty sophisticated. We're talking about MRI scans that can cost anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000, specialized veterinary evaluations, and sometimes even advanced imaging techniques. Recent studies show that early diagnosis can improve treatment outcomes by up to 60%.
The good thing is that treatment has come a long way in recent years. We're seeing success rates of around 80% with medical management, which includes medications that help manage pain and drugs that can reduce cerebrospinal fluid production. In more severe cases, surgical intervention might be necessary, and those procedures have about a 70% success rate.
Also, several European countries have implemented mandatory screening programs for breeds like the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel to combat CM and SM. In the UK, the British Veterinary Association and the Kennel Club launched a CM and SM screening initiative in 2012 to guide responsible breeding.
These efforts are showing results. A 2024 study from the Netherlands and Denmark found that the prevalence of syringomelia in Cavalier King Charles Spaniels dropped from 38% to 27% over a 5-year period, thanks to mandatory MRI screening and selective breeding practices.
Pet owners should be watching for early warning signs or symptoms if they have one of the affected breeds. They typically show up between 6 months and 3 years of age. Besides that characteristic air scratching, owners should watch for persistent neck pain, unexpected yelping, and sensitivity around the head and neck area. Studies show that catching these symptoms early can improve treatment outcomes by up to 40%.
That really drives home the importance of awareness and early intervention. The veterinary community has made huge strides in understanding this condition over the past 20 years. We've gone from barely recognizing it to having detailed genetic markers and sophisticated treatment protocols.
Remember, CM is congenital, meaning dogs are born with it, and it's associated with very specific skull shapes. Think rounder, dome-headed breeds with smaller skull cavities. Dobermans have an entirely different head structure.
It's crucial to understand that while CM is a very real and serious condition, it is specific to certain smaller breeds and has nothing to do with those old myths about Dobermans. The science is clear, and understanding the truth helps us provide better care for all dogs, regardless of breed.
Well said, and it shows how important it is to rely on actual veterinary science rather than urban legends when it comes to our pets' health.
So just to put a big red underline on this, Chiari-like malformation is real, but it's not something Dobermans suffer from. And it has nothing to do with the myth of the Doberman's brain growing too large.
You know what? I think that's the perfect note to end on. Understanding the real science not only helps us be better pet owners, but also helps us combat these persistent myths that can be so harmful to certain breeds' reputations.
Sounds good, and thanks for coming to our Nerdy Dog Health TED Talk.
Ha ha ha, I would definitely listen to that one. So the next myth worth talking about is how Dobermans are always aggressive. We touched on this a little earlier, about how those allegedly aggressive Dobermans that we are supposed to be so afraid of actually score as equally well on temperament tests as, say, the Golden Retrievers.
So these tests from the American Temperament Test Society are fascinating. They put dogs through various challenging scenarios like sudden loud noises, unexpected movements, and stranger approaches. And this is what we were saying earlier. Dobermans consistently achieve pass rates between 79% and 82%, which to me is remarkable for a dog that is supposed to be so dangerous.
That's what's so interesting. In some test years, Dobermans actually outperformed Golden Retrievers. You know why? Because there's this crucial distinction between protection and aggression that most people miss.
I think that's where a lot of misconceptions start. Plus, from their use in military, police, and guard work, as well as their portrayal in media as intimidating or vicious dogs.
That's right, Liam. So think about this. Aggression is reactive, unpredictable, and often fear-based. It's like someone who picks fights at random.
So, protection, on the other hand, is calculated, controlled, and only triggered by actual threats. It's more like having a highly trained security professional who knows exactly when and how to respond.
Exactly. These dogs were specifically bred to be protective, not aggressive. They have this remarkable ability to assess situations and respond appropriately. And here's what's really fascinating. They're actually known as Velcro dogs, and as leaners because of how attached they become to their families.
Oh yeah, the Velcro and leaning dog phenomenon is amazing to me.
Me too. So imagine you're trying to do something like getting ready for work, and you've got this 70-pound dog pressed against your leg, literally leaning on you. Move to another room, they're right there with you, like Velcro. Try to go upstairs, they're matching you step for step. These supposedly fierce guard dogs are basically giant puppies who never want to leave your side.
That's quite different from their tough guy image, that's for sure.
You said it, Liam. And you know what's really interesting? This Velcro or leaning behavior actually stems from their protective nature. They stay close because that's exactly what they were bred for, to be attentive and protective of their people. But it manifests as this incredibly endearing neediness that most Doberman owners just absolutely love about their Dobies.
I imagine that level of attachment might not be for everyone.
Oh gosh, no. If someone's looking for an independent dog that's content doing its own thing, a Doberman probably isn't the best choice. These dogs are essentially emotional support animals who never got the memo that they're supposed to be fierce guard dogs.
Yup, and Dobermans consistently rank among the most intelligent dog breeds around. They can learn complex commands quickly, they're excellent at problem solving, and they have this remarkable ability to read situations and respond appropriately.
They can be highly trained bodyguards with incredible emotional intelligence. And what's fascinating about that is their intelligence means they can distinguish between genuine threats and normal daily activities. They might completely ignore the mail carrier they see every day, but become alert if someone's acting suspiciously around their home. It's not blind aggression, it's calculated protection.
Another thing that is so cool about Dobies is that they are incredibly attuned to their owner's emotional states. If you're sad, they'll try to comfort you. If you're anxious, they'll become more alert. If you're happy and relaxed, they'll mirror that energy. It's like having a four-legged emotional barometer. They can really read their owner's emotions amazingly well. That is so cool. That level of sensitivity really challenges the mindless aggressor stereotype.
Completely demolishes it. And here's another interesting aspect. Dobermans are actually known for being quite reserved with strangers. Not aggressive, just cautious and observant. They typically take a wait-and-see approach rather than rushing to confront someone new. Sure, sometimes they rush a gate, but it's not an attack thing. It's a what's going on over there thing.
What really strikes me about this whole topic is how often we let preconceptions and stereotypes cloud our judgment. These incredible animals have been unfairly labeled as aggressive when they're actually intelligent, sensitive, protective, and incredibly loving companions. It's a powerful reminder to look beyond surface-level judgments.
All right, so our last myth we are going to discuss is the old Dobermans can't be trusted with children or new people. This one will be fairly short. We've pretty much covered this in the other myths. Besides, we spent a lot of time on the brain issue, which I think is a very important topic.
Yes, it really is. So, this one's a little complicated. The truth is, Dobermans are not the right dog for every family. But when raised with structure and early socialization, they can be absolutely amazing with kids.
They're naturally gentle, patient, and alert, but one also has to teach children how to respect a dog's space. That includes any dog breed, actually.
I have to think that some dogs are more tolerant of kids and toddlers, more so than some adults.
That's for sure. But if a Doberman isn't socialized early, if they grow up isolated or fearful, they may become suspicious of strangers, nervous around loud environments, and even reactive. And that's not the dog's fault. That's a training issue.
Yes, it is.
Again, owners need to understand that dogs of any breed need to be trained, socialized, and treated with respect. Children need to be taught that same thing towards dogs, too.
So, do Dobermans turn on their owners?
No, they do not.
Do their brains outgrow their skull?
Again, no way.
And what did we decide about aggression?
They are not inherently aggressive. And lastly, they are not unpredictable time bombs around kids. What they are is loyal, intelligent, sensitive, and completely devoted to their people. If you give them structure, love, and training, they will give you everything in return.
And now, hopefully, you've got some good counterpoints the next time someone gives you that look in the dog park. Until next time, like Brittany always says, give your Dobie a belly rub from us.
Hey, you stole my line. And remember, behind every strong Dobie, there's an even stronger bond. Oh, and if you are interested in adopting or fostering a Dobie in the Phoenix area, you can reach out to our friends at the Desert Harbor Doberman Rescue of Arizona. Please take a moment to visit Desert Harbor Doberman Rescue's website, Facebook, and Instagram pages. The URLs are listed below our videos. Don't forget to like the videos and podcasts and subscribe to the Dobie Foster Friends Instagram page and YouTube channel to keep up on the progress of our fostered pups and dogs. On behalf of Dobie Foster Friends and A&M Web Designs, I'm Brittany.
And I'm Liam.
Saying thank you for watching and see you next time.